Hey, what's going on, guys? Appreciate you stopping by. I've noticed a trend that is happening today, and I thought I'd make this video because I wonder if you see it as well. Comment below and let me know, and let everybody else know. Are you seeing this trend as well, and what are your thoughts on it? This trend I'm referring to is, even with some young people, there is a movement to getting back to things that are real. There's certainly a movement when it comes to homesteading, and that's not what I'm talking about here. But people are, getting into gardening. They're wanting to grow some of their own food. Sometimes they're motivated due to cost. They're motivated because of health. They want to have, food that they know where it came from, and it lacks the chemicals that are used on a lot of food that is at, the big box stores, the grocery stores, and such. Sometimes they, used to grow food when they were young with their grandparents, and they just want to get back to something like that. But there's a movement to what I would call getting back to things that are real. And when you look at social media, people posting things online, there's a lot of fakeness. Fakeness, is that a word? I don't know. But there's a lot of it, whether it's a word or not, where people post things, pictures, their current status. They go through, they spend all this time selecting a profile pic because they're wanting to show themselves in a certain light that is not real. They want it to be real, but it isn't. And a lot of times this comes down to they're wanting to promote themselves as happy, as successful, as having money, and that they are living a blissful existence, when the reality is, and it seems like the people that put forth the most effort is actually on the opposite end of the spectrum for that. The most miserable people will put the most time into trying to look the happiest. So again, to get back on track, there's a trend that's going on right now where people are trying to get back to things that are real. And I'll give you some examples. And I mentioned even young people because I think it's a smaller percentage of this trend, but records, they're selling records in the stores again. They've been doing that for several years, but records, record players, there's a trend where, now if somebody wants to see a movie, not nearly as many people go to the movie theater. And if somebody wants to see a movie, then they stream it. They get on their Netflix, their Amazon Prime, whatever it is. Sometimes it's free, sometimes it costs something, and they stream the TV shows or the movie. And the entertainment business, and it's definitely a business, has made it so that if you want to watch anything, you pretty much have to pay. There's not a ton of up-to-date modern programming that you can watch through an antenna. So, but there's a trend to say, you know what, I'm going to stick it to the man, and I'm not going to do that. And people are going out and they're buying VHS tape players, the old VHS tape players, and they're buying movies on VHS. They're buying DVD players, and they're going and buying DVDs, because quite often you can go to yard sales, you can even go to many antique shops, and there are booths in antique shops that will sell a DVD for $1. And you can open it up, you can look at it, it's in good shape, and they'll buy the movie or the TV show. Might be a season 1 of Seinfeld, and it's $1 or $2, and it's cheaper than the subscription to the online service, and they own it. There's that saying that if you don't hold it, you don't own it, and that's largely true. I've heard of situations. I have not had it happen to me, but I've got a Kindle, I've got Amazon Fire tablets that I have downloaded thousands of Kindle books that were free. Most of them were free. And the reality is, if Amazon decides to pull one of those books, if you connect to the internet, the Kindle app will actually update and remove that book from your library, even though you paid for it. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So there's a trend in the business world of having people pay subscriptions rather than owning things. But there are many people, and I'm sort of that way, that are saying, no, I don't really want to participate, at least not at a high level. I want to own the things that I buy. So again, people are getting old record players or new record players, and they are getting DVD players. They're buying cassettes. I bought a vintage. I had a bit of nostalgia, and I bought a old vintage radio that had AM/FM radio, and then it had a cassette player. And you can buy cassettes very inexpensively at antique shops. Again, quite often 50 cents to $1 for a cassette. And yes, they don't last. Anybody that grew up in the era of cassettes and VHS tapes can remember, having your tape player eat your tape. You pull the cassette out, and the ribbon is all mangled up inside, the wheels and the mechanism of the player. And that was a world-ending event back in the day. But the other thing I'm seeing is toys. That there's a trend towards trying to find some old school toys that were popular back in the day. Some of these are games, even digital. Not digital like today, like what's on the phone, but just old school games. And people are trying to find those, trying to find them for their grandchildren, or maybe young children today. So they're getting on eBay and trying to find some of this stuff. And a lot of it is just related to life today, where everything seems so superficial and so cheap. Maine Prepper Girl and I bought when we moved to Maine and bought a house, we bought all new appliances. Refrigerator, microwave, oven, no dishwasher. We wash dishes by hand. And then, we bought a bunch of furniture and stuff, because the place we moved into used to be a hunting camp. And so we needed to replace a lot of the stuff. And especially Maine Prepper Girl, she was not really impressed with the stove and oven. And she looked around and she found a guy a couple hours from us that had a stove from the 1950s. And I thought she was crazy. I said, this thing, it's from the 50s. It's probably not going to work good. And, we've had all these modern technological improvements, blah, blah, blah. And anyways, I talked to the guy, negotiated with him. I think it was a couple $100. I think he was asking $250, and I said, will you take $200? And he hadn't had it. He was selling it as is. He said, it was working, but he hadn't run it in several years. And we drove to the place, picked it up, great shape, great condition, and it is really, really cool. I am so glad we got it. So hats off to you, Maine Prepper Girl, my much, much, much better half, for making that choice. And this thing, this oven, stove, whatever, from the 50s, actually has two ovens on it that can be controlled separate. And so we sold our other one to a young couple, and sold it, fairly inexpensively. You don't get a lot for used appliances. And we have thoroughly enjoyed this 1950s stove. It's been great. So now we're actually looking for a refrigerator. I'm pretty apprehensive on that one, but we'll see. So I don't know, something that was on my mind this morning as I'm driving the roads in Maine, and thought I'd share, because this is something I've recognized. I've heard other people talking about it, that they're feeling a bit of nostalgia, but it's also just, it's finances, because they want to cancel their streaming services, or they don't want to spend $20 on a digital movie that if they lose their login, then they lose access to it. If that service were to close up shop and not exist anymore, they lose access. They don't own that which they do not hold. And, and I've just continued to see this trend. I was in a store the other day and I saw, young people that were in their early 20s, and they were flipping through the records. And I just thought I would never see that. Pretty cool. So, I've got some old, I've got an old PSP, Sony PSP, that I bought some games for. And, I enjoy every once in a blue moon, I'll pull it out and play it. And, it's pretty cool. Where, now you want to play a game on a portable system, it's on your phone. And I've got a physical game that I put into the PSP. You don't have that on your phone. And, you could lose it. Pay for something. Anyways. So, I just thought I'd share. Let me know your thoughts. Maybe some of these modern technologies and advancements really weren't as advanced and really wasn't bettering our lives as much as we thought, at least at one time. The convenience of pulling up, Netflix or Amazon Prime and, going and getting a movie, going and getting the movie Apollo 13, and that you paid, $7 for, and press and play, and using your internet, because you have to have the internet. Maybe it's not as good as what we thought, when you could just go get the DVD that you bought for $1, put it in the DVD player and play it with no internet needed. So anyways, that's it. Please consider hitting that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Click that notification bell so you'll be made aware anytime new content is uploaded. And I really very, very much appreciate you guys stopping by. So you guys stay safe, take care, and we'll see you next time.
So I ran from the cities and the noise and lies, found a piece of ground under open skies, hands in the dirt, sweat on my shirt, learning what living's really worth. While crooked men shake hands in rooms, selling souls to corporate suits. Society's sick, but I found the cure. A back road life, honest and pure. They can keep their throne and their golden news. This life out here's my modern exodus. I traded screens for a sunrise, callous palms, blisters, pride. Planted seeds where hope was.